The kitchen still feels heavy, like the night hasn't quite let go. Out on the garden path, the watering can bumps lightly against your leg as you walk between the pots, the ground still cool under your shoes. "You're out there again? There's nothing to do this early," someone says from inside, like this is just another way to fill time. But the shift in you happens too fast for that explanation. Before the sun is fully up, something inside has already eased. The relief feels too big for such a small task. And when stillness starts to feel exposed like that, even a simple, repeated movement can begin to matter more than it should. So if this is not really about the plants, then what exactly is changing this quickly? And then the body starts to follow a pattern it already knows. You tilt the watering can, let the stream fall in a steady line, then shift your wrist just enough to move from one pot to the next. The sound is soft, consistent. The soil darkens in a way you can see immediately. Nothing argues, nothing needs explaining. That is what makes this moment different. Your hands have something clear to do, and the world answers right away. You touch, and it responds. You move, and something changes. In a day where many thoughts don't land anywhere solid, this does. And for many people, that sequence matters more than it seems. The temperature of the water, the weight of the can, the pace of your steps, these are signals the body trusts without needing to sort them out. The mind might still be carrying things it can't name yet, but the body has already found something it can follow. And once that kind of steadiness becomes reliable, the habit stops being about the garden alone. It becomes one of the ways the day is held together. And the reason this feels so natural didn't begin in the garden. It was shaped over years in places that asked something steady from you. A loose hinge that needed tightening before it got worse. A small problem noticed early, handled without much talk, just so things would keep running the way they should. You might still remember standing at the edge of a backyard, pruning shears in your hand, clipping one dry stem and watching the plant settle back into shape. Not because anyone asked you to, because that was what you did when something needed attention. You stepped in. You adjusted. You made it hold. That way of moving through the world doesn't just disappear when life slows down. It stays in your hands. It looks for somewhere to land. So when the roles change, when fewer things are clearly yours to manage, the instinct doesn't fade. It shifts. A task becomes smaller. A space becomes quieter. But the need to care for something real, something that responds, remains. And that is where the garden quietly takes over the job. What makes this harder to explain is what it gives back in the moment. You stand at the patio table with a seed tray in front of you, pressing the soil down with 2 fingers, leveling each row without thinking much about it. It's not dramatic. It doesn't look like much from a distance. But something in you begins to line up as the surface becomes even. That is not just preference. It's a kind of steadying work your body has learned over time. You don't always need to name what feels off. You just need a place where off can be adjusted into better in a way you can feel right away. And that's a quiet strength. You know how to lower your own noise without asking for attention, how to bring yourself back without making it a conversation. In a world that often asks for explanations before it allows rest, that matters. But the same sensitivity carries a cost. The more your system learns to settle through these small, ordered actions, the harder it can be to stay at ease when there's nothing in front of you to touch, to adjust, to complete. And that is where the habit begins to carry more than it shows. And then there are mornings when the yard is already done. The soil is damp, the leaves are upright, nothing is calling for your hands. You stand just inside the door, looking out through the glass, the watering can still where you left it. For a moment, you don't step outside. From the outside, that pause is invisible. But inside, something shifts. Without a task to move into, the body doesn't settle the same way. The quiet doesn't feel like rest. It feels open, like something might rise if you stay still too long. For many people, this is where the strain begins to show. The garden has been doing more than offering a place to spend time. It has been holding a certain kind of balance. And when that balance isn't actively maintained, the difference can be felt almost immediately. That doesn't mean anything is wrong. It means the habit has taken on a second role. It's not just about caring for what's growing. It's also about keeping something inside from slipping out of reach. And this is where the people around you tend to simplify it. At the breakfast table, someone glances out and shrugs. You've already been out there twice, they say, like it's a small thing, like it's something you could skip without it mattering. It sounds harmless, maybe even caring, but what they're seeing is only the surface. The back and forth, the watering, the checking, the way you move through the same few steps again. To them, it looks like repetition without purpose, something to fill space. What they don't feel is the difference between being inside that moment and standing outside of it. They don't feel how your breathing changes when your hands have something to do, how the tension drops when there's a clear next step, even if it's small, how the body settles, not because the problem is solved, but because there is something real to move toward. So yes, from one angle, it is just a habit. It is simple. It is repeatable. And from another, it is the way you keep the day from pressing in too close before it has even started. The more private layer usually shows up after the movement slows, not when the water is pouring, but when you set the can down and don't reach for anything right away. You notice how quickly the calm can begin to fade when there isn't a next step waiting for your hands. There are things now that don't respond the way they once did. Situations that don't settle just because you see what's off. Roles that used to give structure have thinned out or shifted. And without that clear place to act, the body can lose its footing faster than anyone around you realizes. So the garden becomes more than a routine. It becomes a place your system recognizes as safe to come down. Not because everything is fixed, but because here, effort still connects to outcome in a way you can trust. That doesn't make you dependent. It means your body has learned something important, where it can return when the rest of life doesn't answer back as clearly. It is worth admitting that when only the garden can calm you, something deeper may still be asking for room. That does not make this habit small, and it does not make it avoidance. This is steadying work, a repeatable way of bringing the body back into a state it can live from. What looks like watering plants is often a person building enough inner ground to face the rest of the day. From the outside, they see someone stepping out again with a watering can, moving slowly from one pot to the next, doing something that looks simple enough to skip. They see repetition. They see a quiet routine that could easily be replaced with rest. What is actually happening is different. You're giving your body a sequence it can trust. You're taking something unsettled and letting it move through your hands in a way that becomes visible, contained, and finished for a moment. You set the watering can down on the path. Your hand rests briefly on the rim of a pot, feeling the damp surface, noticing your breath has changed without you trying to change it. Gardening feels powerful because your body trusts what it can repeat. And if someone could feel that shift from the inside, they might understand why you keep going back out there. The watering can rests where you set it down on the path. You pick it up again, not because something urgent needs doing, but because your body recognizes the movement. You tilt it once more, let the water fall. Watch the soil take it in without resistance. At the beginning, it looked like a small routine, something simple, something easy to dismiss. But now it reads differently. This is one of the few places where your effort still meets a clear response, where your presence changes something you can actually see and feel. The garden doesn't solve everything. It doesn't need to. What it gives you is a place where your body can return to something steady, something real, without needing to explain itself. And in a day that hasn't fully opened yet, that is sometimes enough to stand on. There's a moment in life when stillness starts to feel less like rest and more like exposure, when the mind carries things that don't settle easily, and the body looks for somewhere it can trust again. If you've ever felt that shift happen the second your hands find something real to do, then you already understand this. It's not about the task. It's about what the task gives back. Not a solution, not an answer. Just enough steadiness to keep moving through the day as yourself.